Right guys, so shot number 4 is, for me, one of the first of 2 shots that if you get good at this range, you could knock 4 or 5 shots off your score very, very quickly. Whenever you miss the green, it's getting up and down. And that means up in one and holding the putt down in the hole. It's not up and down, or up and then 2 putts or 3 putts. It's making sure that you chip the first ball into the proximity of the hole, which is close enough where you're pretty confident that you're going to hole it. If you can do that more often, then you're going to have so much more success and your scores will drop drastically, your handicap dropping drastically. So let's look at the shot. Number 1, check out your lie. So it's a little bit of a fluffy area of grass, but it's nestled slightly, so we're going to take that into consideration when we go into the technique in the ball position. Number 2, what have I got in front of me? Have I got a hazard? What's the landing area? Is it an upslope? Is it a downslope? All those are going to affect where you're going to land the ball and then how it's going to react. Now, from this lie here, there is a potential to get a little bit of grass caught between the club face and the ball, and it may release out. So you've got to take that into consideration. So that's where your landing zone comes into play. So your landing zone is going to be decided and dictated by what club and shot you're going to play. So for me, I would recommend that you get good with 1 club around the greens. From there you can expand it, but you need to get good with 1 club where you can change the ball position, which is going to help change your loft, so your launch, the amount of run, the amount of stop it's going to get. And from there, when you're good with that, then you can change, then you can say, okay, let's try it with a less lofted club, let's try it with a more lofted club. So 55-degree wedge for me. So if you carry 54, you carry 56-degree wedge, that should be the club. That should be the first point of call for this type of shot. So from here, we're going to be thinking about landing the golf ball halfway with this type of lie, because I expect it to release a little bit more than if it was on a little bit of a tighter lie, sort of just the other side. If it was here, that golf ball would probably get a little bit more spin, so it would check up a little bit quicker. But here, where it's a little fluffier, a bit more grass, it's going to release a bit more. So I want to think about where I want to land it. So if I was to walk up onto the green, I'm going to walk sideways between my shot, so I can see the whole flight of the shot, and I'm thinking about landing it round about here. So this is about the halfway point of my ball. Now that means that the length of swing has got to be big enough to move the golf ball that far, not big enough to move it to the hole, big enough to move it from A to my landing spot, which is B. From there, I'm then trusting that I'm going to get a little bit of release, and it's going to run down towards the hole, and I'm going to get it to within the distance that I can knock it in and walk away with a really good par. If it's a par 5, you might be walking away with a birdie, or if you've been in trouble, you're going to escape with a bogey. Okay, so how am I going to do it? How am I going to play this shot? So, key principles. If it's on a tight lie, so if it's here, ball position can be central or even slightly forward of the central point. Now, the width of stance isn't going to be very big, so it's not like you're going to be forward here. Width of stance is going to be really small, as you can see there. So forward is only a fraction forward of the central point, but that's going to help me off that really nice tight lie. Now, if I had that ball position here, as you can see, the club settles down in the grass, there's then a potential for me to hit the golf ball somewhere up here, which is then going to affect me judging the distance to my landing spot. So I'm going to move the ball back a little bit into the stance, which is now going to see me play a little bit more here. That gives me a better opportunity of hitting more in the middle of the face, so I can then start to control the distance of the balls through the air. So, narrow stance, pressure forward, so maybe 60%, 65% on your front foot. Keep it there. Remembering again, this is finesse, so there's going to be a little bit of rotation, nothing in the backswing, little bit of rotation in the downswing. Forearms are going to keep moving nicely, and it's the length of the movement, not the length of the movement of the club, length of the movement of your arms, that's going to dictate. And this is where the practice bit at your end, around the practice area at the golf club, really comes into its own, because you've got to get out there and practice how much distance you get through the air from really small movements of the hands and arms through to maybe what might be an 8 o'clock on the club face, on the clock face, sorry. So feeling a little bit of movement, little turn, moving through, keeping everything moving nicely. So if I can get this movement nice and constant, keeping my tempo, I should be able to land this ball in the landing zone, and hopefully it's going to release down nicely towards the hole and we can knock in the putt for a par. And there we go. Now we've played the fluffy lie back in the stance, catching that face. Now we're going to play the shot where it's off that tight lie, because a lot of you guys would much rather have this one than have the tight lie or the bare lie, because this is where you feel the greatest possibility of leading edge. Now if you don't turn, you don't keep the arms moving, club's going to do a little bit of this. You're going to try and sort of scoop it and get underneath it, and we can't because the earth's in the way. So that's where we start to blade it and thin it, and you get into all kinds of danger because you've got to do it again from the other side. So again, now the tight lie, we've got to play the ball a little bit further forward in the stance so that we can still find that nice central point. We can do that because we're not going to get that grass caught between the club face and the ball, so we're going to get the spin on there, which means we can land it that little bit further, so we can fly it a little further. No, it's going to have that little bit of check on it, but the basic setup remains the same. So the stance is narrow, which means when the ball position is that little bit further forward, it's only a fraction forward of that central point. It's not over here, it's not a wide stance with the ball there, so it's that narrower stance. It's the ball position a little forward of centre, pressure onto the lead side 60-65%, and then as long as we can keep the feeling of nice and smooth controlled arms movement, little hip turn, arms swinging through, we can control that landing zone, so we're flying it that little bit further. So rather than it be in here, I'm going to move it on a little bit to about here. So if we looked at it from dissecting the distance of the shot into sections, if I get this ball to travel almost 2/3 of the way, it'll check up and release that final third, because I'm going to get a little bit more control, because I'm not going to get that grass caught between the ball and the club face. So same feeling with the stance, pressure. This time the ball's a little forward, and I'm going to keep that movement, keep the tempo and the finesse, keep the turn, and let's see if we can land this one in the area, and again get it in there close to get up and down for the par. And there we go. So I've landed it there, it's checked up and it's released on a little bit, and I've got that same sort of 2.5 to 3 footer in there to hold, get away with the par, move on, keep the score ticking over.